Hey, happy birthday, Mr. Bacon. Uh, Welcome to Ghosts of Bacon, everyone. I'm your host, Jake Roberts, and we have a really great lineup tonight on the Ghosts of Bacon podcast. This is gonna be a fun one. And like I said, this is our second annual Bacon birthday bash, and we're all pretty excited about it. Brought some of my friends with me here this evening. Looking in the chat, I see a lot of our usual viewers and listeners. Thank you, guys. You're all the ones. You're the reason why we all do this, and we enjoy sharing our information with you very much. I just put in the chat there that you better put on your party shoes and grab yourself some libations because this is the Bacon birthday bash. And I brought my friends here. First up, we have Jayson Mercer joining us here. My friend from across the pond, Will Russell, in the house. And none other than yours truly, John Edwards, also sitting shotgun here. So we're loaded for bear here. We're ready to go. And I think that we all have some really cool information for you to share. So welcome, guys. I'm really glad you could join me today.
Great to be here, Jake.
Cheers.
Yeah. Yes. Cheers.
So I put in the chat that that every time since we're going to be talking about the cipher systems of Sir Francis Bacon, and he makes liberal use of prime numbers. Every time you hear the word prime, you have to take a sip. So I just said it. All right, we're up to, we just went past 22 viewers, 22 being the value of the name Stuart in Elizabethan short cipher. How about that? So what we're going to do here, each of us, I think we all have a little contribution to make here to Sir Francis Bacon's birthday. And I want to kind of take us down memory lane and show you, how all of this really kind of started back a couple of years ago. We were all neck deep in lockdown COVID town. And, and so I found myself, I'm waiting for my students to show up remotely. And of course they never did. So I had some extra time on my hands. And something that had come up on the radar just before that, my friends who were the Curse of Oak Island researchers, my good friend Chris Dona and Christopher Morford, of course, they were looking at what we call the Stratford plaque. This is the plaque that adorns the Shakespeare funerary monument in Holy Trinity Church in Stratford-upon-Avon. And they were doing some really cool decryptions with it, much like what we all know and remember from Peter Amundsen, the work that he had done. And I was a big fan of everything that he had been working on. So I looked at it, I thought, they said, go ahead, you're into cryptanalysis and cryptology. Why don't you take a shot at it? And I'd always wanted to, and I just never had the time, because when I looked at it, I recognized that there was a very specific type of, in my opinion, a very specific type of cipher at work here. So I'm going to go ahead and explain what I did. Let me share my screen. For those of you who are unfamiliar with my work and what I've done, it's all based on this right here. This is the Shakespeare funerary monument in Holy Trinity Church in Stratford-upon-Avon. And as you can see here, we have the bard famously sitting here looking very upright, I guess you would say. Here he has a piece of paper and a quill, but here he is trying to write on a pillow. This has always been a really very curious way of doing things. And of course, you can't write on a pillow, can you? Well, as it turns out, the actor William Shakespeare probably couldn't write either. But this little piece of history is the plaque. From here on out, I'm just going to refer to it as the plaque. And when I looked at this, I recognized that there was a specific kind of encryption here. Here you see I've gone through and numbered each individual character on the plaque. And this was a part of my decryption process. And so what I noted was a couple of things. this character right here. Several of the characters were conjoined or ligatured in this manner. Okay, so in my mind, that meant that they were to be treated as one character. And what I realized was at work here was something called a transposition cipher. Now, the way that works is you have to identify a key. And the key needs to be a number or a series of letters that can be translated into a number using the ciphers of Sir Francis Bacon, is how I did it. And what you can then do is set up an algorithm. And the way it works is in this manner. When I was trying to figure out, a key has to be a number. And then I realized down here in the corner, we have a date. Let me zoom in on that for you. And here we have 1616, the number 53, and the number 23. Now, little did I know that I was actually utilizing a technique that would later come in to be extremely useful in decrypting paintings and maps and so on that are the work of the Rosy Cross. But at the time, I was just starting out, didn't really know what I was doing. But it occurred to me that, well, here are some numbers right here. They can be turned into a key. And I knew that 1,616 was far too large to be used as a key, and I'll explain how that works in a second. So what I did was I added 16 to 16, the first two digits, the second two digits, and arrived at the number 32. And at the time, I realized that the number 32 is significant in that it's the letter F in Sir Francis Bacon's K cipher. And without having to get into what all the ciphers are and how they work, I'm just going to kind of give you the basics and the overview of what I did. So this, to me, was a clue. There was a misspelling here. There were other misspellings there, and there's negative space up above that actually basically draws arrows to all of these numbers. Now, so what I realized was this was the key 32, and then these other numbers could be treated in the same way. I would add the 5 to the 3 and have 8. And then add 2 to 3, and I would arrive at 5. So these would be the keys. And so what that does, let me back it up. Well, I would count 32 letters, and here you see the letter A here. I would count 30, and I wrote down the letter A in a little grid system in a box. And so then I counted 32 more, and I was down here at 64, the letter P, and so on. And I just kept on doing this, and I kept counting 32 and taking that letter out and putting it into a grid system. And what happens is I kept passing through all 8 lines of this little verse here. And by the time I was done, I was able to rearrange every single character, including all of the characters down here in the date. And so that I called that key 32. So the number 32 was what allowed me to set up the algorithm that rearranged all of these characters. What I then did was I used the number 8 from 53 down here. And that new grid that I had created, I went through and I counted every 8th character and rearranged them again. And it wasn't until I had solved another riddle that I was able to use 5, because as it turns out, there are 305 characters in the plaque. So if you try to use 5, you get to the end and it terminates, it stops, you can't continue. However, there was a specific letter I was supposed to skip, and I found that message telling me which one to skip. It was really kind of cool. And so what happened was after I did that, I realized that, well, we have another key, and it's this conjoined letter. It's the TH. However, it's not TH. It's actually 2 T's. One T is on its side, and they join at the stem. So TT, I know, is a signature of Francis Bacon. It's TT represents the idea of 33, or at least that's the common conception. I've since discovered that it has a completely different meaning. That will be coming out in my next book. But what I'm going to do is show you what turned into key 38. And this is just one little tidbit. This is just one tiny little piece of evidence called an acrostic. When I used the number 38 to rearrange all of the characters into a grid, this is what I came up with. These numbers down here in these rows, in these columns, are just the number of what row we're on. If we get down here to row 6, 6 is the letter F in Francis Bacon's simple cipher, so it's his initial, F. And here we see the message, acrostic message, starting up here on line 5. It says, I, art, F the third. And so I saw that, and I didn't, at this point, I had already decrypted the message in key 32 and key 8, which stated that he was the king of 2 countries, whichever he chose. He had his choice of 2 thrones. By the end of all of this, I discovered that, yes, Francis Bacon was the son of Mary, Queen of Scots, and Francis II. And so that was then, let me stop the screen, bring us all back. That led to my publishing of the Holy Trinity Decryption. And you can see that it's a pretty fat book. It's heavy. As my friend Linda always says, it's about as clear as mud. Hopefully when I come out with a second edition, I'll be able to clean that up a little bit, make it a little more accessible to the general public. But as an overview, that's how all of this started. There are multiple explicit messages stating, and here's the problem. I'm a member of the Francis Bacon Society, and the vast majority of members of the Francis Bacon Society have a long-held tradition and belief in the theory that Francis Bacon is actually the son of Queen Elizabeth I. And unfortunately, what I've done is I've disproven that theory. Now, they have, to their credit, that there is a ton of really good circumstantial evidence in support of the Queen Elizabeth theory, what we call the Prince Tudor theory. Unfortunately, all of that circumstantial evidence also supports Bacon as the son of Mary, Queen of Scots. Now, that is not to say that Queen Elizabeth didn't have any secret children. One of the messages in the cipher text of the plaque states very plainly that Robert Devereux, 2nd Earl of Essex, was Queen Elizabeth's son. Now, a lot of people have always believed that as well. However, Bacon was not. And so there was a very close friendship, and since they were cousins, a close friendship between these 2 men. And Essex's execution, Bacon refers to in the ciphertext in my first book as his greatest folly. There was nothing he could do to prevent it, and he tried. He basically states that if he had tried any harder, he would have lost his own head. So he backed off. So at any rate, that's where all of this started. And along with that very crazy statement that Francis Bacon is the son of Mary, Queen of Scots, and Francis II is therefore Francis III, there are a lot of other revelations in this book that at first glance seem impossible. However, what I started doing was making sure I found corroborating evidence from independent sources. And so I started this podcast, and I each night I threw this out. I said, listen, I know all of this stuff sounds crazy, but it's true. And if you don't believe me, try it for yourself. Look into it. Use some of these numbers. And lo and behold, this cast of characters here that we're hanging out with in the Brady Bunch themes, like actually took up that challenge. And so I still have multiple invites out to other members of the Francis Bacon Society to do the same. However, well, we'll have to wait and see if anyone actually takes up that charge. But that's all I have is just an overview. And so what happened was these fine gentlemen also began to find information that corroborated my own discoveries. And really that's at the heart of the scientific method is other people trying to corroborate the discovery and the phenomena. So here we have it. So Jayson, Will, John, what say you? Are you primed up?
I'm primed.
Yeah.
He did it.
No.
I wasn't ready for that second one, Jayson.
A great review. I like that, Jake.
Oh, thanks. Like I
That's
said,
great.
trying to keep this. I'm using John's, advice of just keep it simple, stupid, and don't do a deep dive. So there you go. That's the overall.
That's all we can do is try to get better at explaining what we do, because at first glance, it's you don't want to buy into learning it because, but we're so passionate about it. I made several mistakes along the way. Your book was a great help, and I just kept growing and growing. And I try to put myself in a grade level, and I was, at kindergarten level for so long. I feel like I've moved up into being as smart as a fifth grader now. But I'm still kind of moving along with it and taking off with it. And these finds come around a lot faster now.
They do once you get in. And Jan Scores is, of course, asking a great question. Does the outcome always have to be in English? Actually, no, not at all, Jan. In fact, all of the ciphers that I decrypted were in a mixture of because of the letters available. Bacon was as where is I just saw Daniel. There you go. Yes, Daniel states Bacon was fluent in several languages, and he did. Yes, Daniel, he spoke each one like a native speaker. That's very true. And so the ciphers were a mixture of English, French, Latin, and mostly Hebrew sometimes. So that's what I discovered. Occasionally there would be a Greek root word in there, but mostly he stuck to English, Latin, French, and Hebrew. Great question. And good explanation, Jayson, for sure. And Jan, with a follow-up comment, yes, Daniel, it makes it possible for him to hide his messages in different languages just to make it harder to decipher. But also, the people who are deciphering it are not going to be able to do it unless they have access to those languages. I did it through the use of translators. I wouldn't have been able to do it myself. That's for sure. And the other thing too is that it not only makes it a little more challenging to decrypt. If someone is fluent in all those languages, they can look at it and they see it. Okay. What it does is it gives the encryptor greater flexibility in his usage of letters and language. So
Jake, question for you.
Yeah.
When you decode stuff like that, and do you use the Elizabethan alphabet, even though it's in French, or do you use the French-based alphabet during the time? I'm just kind of curious. Oh, he might have froze.
You've frozen him.
He's frozen.
Froze up.
Yeah, he's frozen.
You hit a prime number.
I hit him with a question he couldn't answer.
He doesn't want to answer that.
There he is. He's
well,
frozen.
folks, here we are. It's Bacon's birthday, January 22nd. Oh, he's back.
Oh, we're back. Yeah, it was all of a sudden everything went black.
Okay.
So, yes, John, we use the Elizabethan alphabet, which has 24 letters instead of the standard English 26 letters that we use today. They did not use the letter J or the letter U. They used I and V in its place. Yeah.
I guess my question was, have we ever tried to use the Bixonian method of coding and encoding in French? And is the French alphabet, is it 24 letters as well, or is it more? I don't know.
I didn't try to do that simply because all of the ciphers that I've decrypted were the ones that were in English.
Okay.
And so if I don't read French or speak French, so I would imagine, and again, this goes back to the Rosicrucian dictum that, when they are in another country, they wear the habit and custom of that country. Right. That if they were to be using encryptions in another language, that they would use their alphabet. The same methodologies would apply.
Yeah, I was just following up on Jan's question. Jan's question was a great question. I was like, wow.
John, I found a couple of Hebrew words in the plaque, in the Shakespeare funerary plaque. Mm-hmm. So one of them is Dar, D-A-R, and it means mother in Hebrew. But when I total that, I use the Elizabethan alphabet. Yeah.
Nice.
Right. Well, there's he modeled the Elizabethan alphabet cipher system after the Hebrew one. So it would make perfect sense.
Gematria.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, so he's modeling that based on the ancient Jewish gematria, and so that's why it's so similar to it with this, the substitution cipher. And then he goes in the reverse and K and so forth.
People are using the word prime in the chat too. Well done, Tom. Well played.
Burns.
Tom.
It was Burns. Go figure.
Mhm.
All right, so that's my spiel. What else we got, gentlemen?
Well, I just got a couple of minutes to run through some fun number 22 stuff that I've come across that relates to his birthday, because it's a constant message of his, because it first kind of solidifies the relationship to his father and the beginning of this story where 47 days after his father dies on December 5th, he's born on January 22nd, Mary's 18 years old. And here this journey has to begin. So the birthday is very significant to show everybody, you know, this timeline, and that certainly is plausible. So his death is also on April the 9th, and he's going to fake his death. He's going to kill an alias that is his first alias, really, that we know of, Sir Francis Bacon, because it's not his name. He is Francois III. So April 9th is the 99th day of the year on the Julian calendar. So you take 99 and minus 22, the 22nd day of the year that he's born, you come up with a 77. So 77 is short DAV, dolphin. It's short for dolphin in K cipher. If you take the 99 number for the death day and subtract it from 365 years, and then you add the 22 days back that he's born on the 22nd day, you get a total of 288. That message in itself is 88 is Prince and 200 is Sir Francis Bacon. So in reverse cipher, you have Prince Francis Bacon, all in one right there. So we did a podcast early on. I think it was my first solo kind of interview with you, Jake, after we did the maps. And the Bacon funerary monument is a tall rectangle. It's an etching. It's a woodcut. And William might have something to say on this afterwards about, you know, actually being there. But his funerary monument is set at 61 degrees corner to corner. Well, he's born in 1561. So there's the first angle that means something to his birth date. When you go corner to corner and you find the X on that center of that artwork, the X is at 122 degrees. So in the whole perimeter of choosing this rectangle, he put into it his birthday on his death monument. That was pretty cool. And then going corner to corner, when those two lines come down through the text on the plaque, they only hit 4 letters, and they hit the letters. They hit the letters B, A, O, and N, and the C is missing. Well, you have to keep following the red lines, and when they cross, it makes the X, and in the Atbash system, X is C. So there he is in the geometry, corner to corner, and he put his name on it, Bacon, on his funerary plaque that he designed to eliminate this alias and move on. So I think that is so cool in the design of that.
That's just it. There's so many of these. You know, people, when we present one of these things, people say, oh, well, you know, that's an interesting coincidence. But
yeah,
when we all find them and they repeat over and over and over again.
Yeah.
The other thing too, it's so cool, Jason. It's like the idea that you're bringing up his birth date and his death date, and how at his death date he brings up his birth date and vice. It's really, really pretty cool.
Yeah.
one of the things that came up a little while back, there's someone who was, as usual, a lot of these claims are very contrary to, orthodox opinion, because people said, well, one person said, wow, you're changing history. And I said, no, I'm not. None of us are. I think that what we're doing is revealing history, the real history. Once I started doing this, I discovered how very little we actually truly know about any of this stuff. For example, one of the biggest reactions when I stated that Francis Bacon was actually Francois III, everyone says, "Oh, that's impossible." Everyone knows that Francis II couldn't have children, and that's not true. Actually, that was all based on a rumor that was written down in a journal of one of Francis II's mother's handmaids. And so it was all a rumor that was, I believe, planted by Catherine de' Medici to basically to make sure that no one would believe that her son had an heir when she wanted to put her next son on the throne so that she could remain in power in France. If she hadn't done that, then Mary, Queen of Scots, would have been the Queen Regent. And the way Catherine de' Medici felt about Mary, Queen of Scots, no way in hell that was going to happen. So,
yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of people look at our information and their initial reaction is, oh, well, that can't be true, because the problem is that a lot of what we think is our Orthodox history, well, as much as I hate to admit that Henry Ford was right, he was right. History is bunk.
Yeah, it was a secret. There were things designed to elude us from following down that path and changing our mind. So it's pretty easy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And then we did a podcast on the Mask of Shakespeare and the Drozhak portrait on the first folio. And at the very top of the first folio is another 122. So instead of using a W to spell Mr. William, he spelt it Mr. capital VV together to look like a W. And that total in simple cipher was 122. So he's using his birth date in several ways as a trademark because it's so significant. And he did that right there at the top. And if you did that same name in reverse, it was his mother's birthday on 12/8, 128. And then if you did it in K cipher, it was 200 again, and 200 K cipher was Francis Bacon. So very cool.
Yeah.
And I hope to show you some more 22s in the future. I've showed you guys in a private showing. There's a portrait that the world really hasn't seen a lot of yet. It's been in a private collection for a very long time. Bacon puts his birth date in this portrait, and he puts his death date in this portrait, and all the other numbers that we've shared before, and all the geometry through the eyes. It's all there. It's quite fun. It's really exciting. I found recently a portrait of Mary, Queen of Scots, and Bacon's birthday is all over it. The same kind of geometry. And then I have one more portrait to share with you guys in the future. And it's a pregnant 18-year-old Mary, Queen of Scots. And I can't say any more because I'll give it away, but it's amazing. So hope to share those in the future.
That's great.
I can't wait. Great job, Jayson. Thanks.
Thanks.
All right. Oh, wow. Thanks, Adam. Put that up on screen. Give you guys a shout out because Adam's saying, I'm new to the chat room, but a longtime subscriber to Ghosts of Bacon. You guys are awesome. Totally on board with your incredible work. Yes. Cheers, Adam. Thanks so much. Appreciate your kind words.
Thank you.
Josh asked the question. Dr. Award followed Bacon's own instructions of laying the folios on a great wheel to decipher them. Have you researched his methods or considered doing a similar test? Absolutely not, Josh. When you the methodologies he used were very unscientific, and no one really knows about this idea of whether or not he followed Bacon's instructions or in fact, when he was on his deathbed, he lamented that he had ever even looked into the folio in the first place. What he did was he actually used not just the first folio, but also the works of Christopher Marlowe and other contemporary writers and some of the works of Sir Francis Bacon. And he laid them out on this giant canvas on wheels, and he would crank and then claimed that there was a what he called a word cipher would just sort of appear. And well, forgive me for saying it, but that was not the only crank in the room. I think he was a crank. I'll just say it. All of the work of Potts and the others, Ignatius Donnelly as well, has been debunked. William and Elizabeth Friedman did an amazing job of just point blank, piece by piece, going through their books and laying out how they used methods that were not scientifically valid at all. They had no basis of an actual cipher message in the first folios, unfortunately. So,
hey, Dave Patrol was asking a question.
What's that?
Dave Patrol was asking a question about the number 398.
Oh yeah, I just saw that.
So I'm not familiar with the number. I just grabbed my calculator, and I was talking about the year earlier, 365. Subtract 365, and you're left with 33. So, and not why should I have this in my mind? But the 33rd day of the year is 22. It's February 2nd. February 2nd is a 33rd day of the year. So, Dave, I don't know, but that's an interesting number you just showed there.
Yeah. Wow. Great catch, Jayson. Great catch. I don't have anything for 390. And this is one of the things that this is why I was always so excited that you guys kind of climbed on board my crazy train here. You start looking at this stuff, and next thing you know, it works, and we're seeing it. We're getting independently, verifying each other's information, and you come at it with looking at dates and things that I forget to even think about. And William comes at it with well, I can't wait to see what William comes at it with here next, because I'm really excited. He's been teasing me here with this announcement he's going to bust my chops with here. Daniel with another great comment. Dr. Owen totally misinterpreted a deciphered message and made his wheel. It was the wheel of Fortuna, a human Roman goddess, that was being referred to, in my opinion. 100% on board with you there, Daniel. Bacon made regular use of that imagery for sure.
Hey, Jake, can you do me a favor? I emailed you a picture of Fortuna. Can you pull her up?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of which, we've mentioned her a couple times today. And there's also, is it
in the PowerPoint you sent me?
Yes. Okay. It's the one where Bacon's earthly coil is being cast down, and the Ascension is happening.
Yeah. Let me grab that.
Not sure if you can find that. It's the one right before this one. Second from the bottom, right there. Yep. There she is. And this is where she's casting down. And that was the year that he died. So there's where you're seeing exactly what was just the comment was just made. She's raising Bacon up into the Ascension master status and casting out his actor, his persona. So there's his death year. And that's exactly what's happening. His earthly coil is going.
I was going to say, shuffling off his mortal coil. Yeah.
And there it is symbolically. Same thing that was just said. It's exactly the same thing.
Wow. Very cool.
So again, we see it symbolically. We see it in cipher. Same thing.
Same thing.
Yep.
Awesome. Good catch, John. So, you know what? I have to throw this one up there. Patty Drake wants to know, what's good on TV, Will? Are you multitasking?
It's watching NFL.
No, it's different.
Two screens up, and I'm kind
of. Oh, cool. All right, so lots of really cool.
Is William watching football?
No, you guys
No.
do screen one.
It must be the
Soccer's
prime time
over.
game. It's the prime time game. That's what he's watching.
So, William,
Yes.
it was funny. He messaged me earlier today. It's like, he says, what other meanings do we have for the value 137? And I said, well, that comes up all the time because it's the 33rd prime number, right?
Right.
So what do you say, William? What do you got on your mind?
Let's have it, Will.
It's just primes, really.
And all of our friends here in the States want to give Will a big shout out and a big thanks for staying up this late. It's a little bit later over there on your side of the pond there. So thanks for staying up with us, Will. Really appreciate it. So here we have our friend AO, our Alpha Omega buddy. I may not understand it, but I love how Jake and company are exposing Francis Bacon as being one of history's most important intellects, similar to Isaac Newton, Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, etc. Yeah, thanks, AO, because he is, I think out of all of those, from what I've seen so far, he is by far the giant.
Well, that's funny. You should mention Nikola Tesla, because his number, and he does a whole study, and the number 369.
369.
And William's done quite a bit with 369, I believe, as well, and Jayson. So that those numbers in these esoteric thoughts continue to repeat themselves.
Yeah, and again, it's the 369 is the constant of the 9x9 magic Agrippa's magic square, which is associated with Luna, or the moon. And Bacon made heavy use of Agrippa's magic squares in his alias formula that I've discussed before.
Also, it's the Masonic triangle 369.
369.
So that's also 3069 triangle. So you get those values over and over and over again.
Yep. So, Will.
Yeah.
Why don't we? I'm just going to push us along here.
Okay.
Jake.
Right. Being as it's Bacon's birthday bash, I thought I'd start with the Bible, and we've got the calendar in the front of the King James Bible. So what we've got here is we've got December the 8th for Mary Queen of Scots' birthday. And you'll see the line at the top of the screen, which is the line of her birthday. And there's 40 characters in that line, which is Francis in short cipher. Okay, and then you'll see there's morning lessons and evening lessons. And the value of the first 3 lessons, which are numbered, is 67, which is Francis. And then the final lesson is James I, which is Bacon's half brother. Okay. And then you'll see there's Conception of Mary, which has been abbreviated to CONC dot. Now, CONC in simple is 33, which is Bacon in simple. And in reverse, it's 67, which is Francis in simple. So the Conception of Mary, being Mary Queen of Scots because it's her birthday, is Francis Bacon.
That's really awesome.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
That is so good. So good. The K-cipher value is also 85, which is Frater in reverse.
And the short cipher value is 15, which is Bacon in short.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
Right. So that's Mary Queen of Scots' birthday. So should we do Francis II's birthday?
By all means.
Okay. So January the 19th is King Francis II's birthday. So there's 33 characters in the line, which is Bacon. And the value of all the lessons is 125, which is Rex Francois in simple. And 125 can also be represented as a date, which is December the 5th, which is a date Francis II died. So it's all right there in the birthdays. You haven't seen that before, have you, Jake?
No. Wow. This is so good. Oh wait, this is just great stuff.
Now, William, I'm about to assume that the correlation between the date of death was a manufactured date, and perhaps King Francois II lived on, as Francis himself did. You see what I'm saying? Because Francis dies on Easter, in that whole Send the Master thing. So, does he really die on this date, or is this manufactured in this kind of line of death and rebirth kind of idea of ascension and rebirth, resurrection? So I'm just kind of curious because Bacon implants his death date in many of his codices. So how much of this is manufactured to produce a certain value? I guess I'll ask either you or Jake or Jayson about that.
I'll pass on that and let Jake.
I think that Will has done a good job in the past of showing how Bacon encoded his death date, right?
Yes.
Ahead of time. Well, this is after the fact, John. So in my mind, what this would be doing is commemorating the death date of his father.
No,
because it happens. Yeah, it happens post that.
That's amazing.
So, and plus, a king. It's a far different matter of a man who isn't supposed to exist, faking his death like Francis Bacon. He's not supposed to be, no one knows who he is, versus King of France, for sure. But it's a good question, and I think it's important to delineate that for people who are watching and show there is a difference there.
Yeah, I was just asking to clarify that because I know we deal with a lot of that, and it's a post, versus a pre, and something that they're doing to be symbolic versus something that's actually happening. Right. So that's kind of why I threw the question out there.
Yeah. Good stuff. Right, so it's Bacon's birthday, so let's do Bacon's birthday, which is January the 22nd today. And there's 33 characters in the line, which is Bacon. And the value of the morning lessons is 33, which is Bacon. And the value of the evening lessons is 18, which is G in reverse cipher. And G is a Bacon signature. Okay, and then you've got the word Vincent in the line. And the word Vincent in all ciphers, in simple, it's 82, which is brother in simple. In reverse, it's 93, which is brother in reverse. K is 160, which is brother in K. And short is 28, which is Stuart. So he's saying he's got a Stuart brother, which is what it said on Mary's birthday as well.
Because you find three, brothers being there's three brothers is what's being suggested there. I think brother in the different ciphers, which could be Francis and James and
let's stop there.
Yeah. Should we go to the next slide?
Don't make me nervous, John. Come on. It might be somebody else's birthday today too.
Okay, now I took a trip last year to the Holy Trinity Church in Stratford upon Avon to have a look at the funerary plaque. And they've got a King James Bible in there, and that is normally open on Psalm 46, which is very interesting, being as Psalm 46 has Shakespeare in it, and it's Shakespeare's church. Okay, so with that context, we'll move on to Psalm 46. Now, there's the word shake and spear in Psalm 46. Now, if you count the words between shake and spear, there's 111 words, which is bacon in case I've So inside Shakespeare is bacon. If anyone had ever had any doubts, it's not De Vere, it's bacon.
It's bacon.
That little dash in between, that's 111. That's bacon.
Yeah. Yeah, I see it. Oh, jeez.
So, yeah, you can't really. That's pretty cool, isn't it? So between the words shake and spear is 111 words.
Wow.
And then word 56 is the midpoint, would be halfway.
Yes, yep. So if bacon's inside Shakespeare, what's inside bacon? Well, word 56 is the midpoint, so that gives you 55 words either side. And 55 is Francis Bacon in short cipher.
Mm-hmm.
And 56 is Stuart in reverse. So
wow.
Inside bacon is Stuart. So, and if you add 56 to 111, you get 167, which is Baron Verulam in reverse and Francois III in reverse.
This is just great. This is just great.
Oh.
Yeah. And Psalm 46 has 221 words in it, which forwards is 22nd of January and backwards is January the 22nd. Happy birthday, Bacon.
Happy birthday. That's awesome.
Wow. Great job. He
This
did a prime job. Great
Yeah.
job, William.
Oh, well done.
But there is one more slide to go in this, but
Great work, Will.
A private showing afterwards.
Excellent.
Because it's got classified.
I can't wait for that, Will.
Yeah,
Wow,
leave a cliffhanger.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Well done.
So much going on.
It's to do with the word in the middle, moved. I can see you trying to add it up, Jake, but there's
that's good.
There's a master key number to go with it. So
that's really good.
That sounds 46. It's amazing, Jake. The Psalms 46 keeps giving like that. He's the ascendant master, 4610, right? Because they don't know that I am God. You have coming off the G in the top to 3 crosses, which is triple tau, by the way.
Right.
The 3 crosses. And then you Shakespeare and fear. You know, it's all right there. And Psalms 46, I mean, when William showed me that my head exploded. I was like, what? Because now you have 111 and it's bacon. And then he's Stuart. It's Stuart bloodline. So what's in bacon? Stuart blood. And it just keeps on, you know, the hits keep on rolling. It's unbelievable.
Unreal.
It's the Stewart family Bible.
Basically, that's what it is.
It sure is.
It sure is. Wow. Well, I mean, it's just, that's phenomenal work. That was genius. I just
love it. Inside Shakespeare is bacon. I just loved it.
Oh, that's so good. Well, it's like that episode you and I did, John, when we were talking about you were talking about Freemasonry.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, in my next book, I do have the decryption that states that, you know, his fraternity evolved into Freemasonry. But then I pointed out how the word from Peter Dawkins states that the name Francis itself means free.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we look at the word masonry, M-A, then the word son, and at the end we have R-I. We have a son out of Mary. Francis is a son out of Mary.
Wow.
Encrypted in Freemasonry. And so this message, it just keeps repeating. It keeps repeating. And, you know, someday I think that my friends, whom I greatly respect in the Francis Bacon Society, are actually going to look at our information. And when they do, they're going to say, well, I can't really disagree with that.
Yeah. And son is 45 in simple cipher.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see the Freemason symbol with the G in the middle, and that's 18, which in case cipher it's 33 Bacon. The square at the bottom is the sun. It's 45 degrees. So typically you see the compass open, and in various artwork that's not following the true number or angle that it should be set at. I have found them at 67 degrees each. So it's Francis and Francis, the sun of Francis.
Yeah, I found 67 degrees as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Great stuff, guys. Great stuff. And Daniel brings up a point. The widow's son. This is something that I get into in my next book, Daniel. And wouldn't that specifically describe Francis Bacon as the son of Francis II and Mary Queen of Scots? You have to have pity for the poor widow's son. That's why that's in there.
And what she had to endure, as I keep learning all of this and more of it, what she had to endure to hide him, move him. He's raised by Garter Knights. He's protected in this circle.
Mm-hmm.
Those connections of Garter Knights go into France and those kings, even Charles IX, who took Bacon's seat, his uncle took Bacon's seat because Bacon wasn't going to get it. And so they're all Garter Knights, and they're protecting this.
Yes. Yep. 100%. Let's see. Tom Burns. Perhaps someday soon you will share the other birthday boy's identity, sir. I think in about a month. We'll be doing that. And it's, I'm in the unenviable position. And I said this on Jeff Freeman's podcast the other night. And I was on there with my good friend Bill Smith and Tony Sampson. With the information that we've been uncovering and decrypting, at first glance, these people call them claims. They sound crazy, and I'm always the first one to admit that, and I know it, being a sane person, a rational person. I'd like to believe that I'm somewhat intelligent and would know better than to go around just saying crazy stuff. But I say it anyway because I know it's true. And when you have this pile of evidence, and here's the problem, people will watch this podcast and they'll say, oh, you guys played games with numbers and you made it say what you wanted to say. Fine, go ahead and say that. But at the end of the day, you put together, something in a heavy book and string it all and just lay it bare for everyone to look at. And guys, I know that you feel the same way I do when I say, try it for yourself. Just look at it. Look at our information. Look at all of our information, not like, little cherry pick pieces. And, actually go ahead and try to do what we do. And once you do, and Will, Jayson, John, you guys all agree. Once you do, it's so much fun. You become addicted. You can tell that these guys were just having a great time, doing this, and it was it was fun for them. I think it's a lot of fun for us. Just finding that first we find little Easter eggs, right?
Right.
And then one of the things that always comes up too with criticisms is this idea of people try to claim, cipher saturation. If you come up with enough numbers, you're going to find numbers that you want them to mean. That's not possible. It doesn't work that way. The numbers themselves have meaning.
Yeah.
They mean something and they communicate. And when we see a number, it's within context and it's communicating that message. And so, it's important to put that in context because we're no longer doing what people before us had done, where they would say, look at a mispaginated page in the first folio and see if there's a significance to the number of the page, and then identify a 33 on that page. So, oh, I found Bacon on that page. That's not what we're doing. We're actually reading messages that tell a story. And it's the family story, the real family story of Francis Bacon. And it's what keeps getting repeated over and over again.
And Jake, to add on to that, one of the fascinating parts is if it's in one modality, that would be something. We could say, okay, maybe there's saturation, who knows? But you see it in image, you see it symbolically, you see it on maps. You know, we have the Drake map, we have the map in the 1611, and we have other maps where you see these encoded messages. So if it's just one place, that would be one thing. But when you see in different modalities, one, it says the message wanted to get through to the future. They want to throw the message into the future. And two, now you're confirming using independent means the same message.
Yes, 100%, John. Well said. I'll get to this in a second, Ray. On that note, John, and this is why this is why it's been taking me so long, gang. A lot of you have reached out to me, asked me when it's coming out. What I tried to do in the first book was identify corroborating evidence from other sources in different modalities, as John just said, paintings, and in particular
Images,
maps and imageries. And I'm doing that in spades in this book. And the idea is that one of the criticisms people have said about, do you mean to say, and this is such a fallacy of logic argument, and it makes me angry. So I'm going to get on my soapbox here a little bit so you can see me. We're talking about how short I am here on the pre-show. So people say, do you mean to say that the only reason someone created these perfect plays and perfect sonnets was to put in a code? No, that's the stupidest argument I've ever heard in my entire life. So don't ever try to use it with me. Here's what they were doing. They created something that would stand the test of time, that was so good and so rich and so fine that people would preserve it forever. And then what did they do? After the fact, you can go in and encrypt the truth.
Correct.
They created the sonnets, which are immortal. He was immortalizing the fair youth, right? He sure did. Those sonnets are going to last forever. But guess what, gang? In my next book, I'm going to point out to you exactly how this story was also encrypted in the sonnets. And so, this sort of offhand little quips of, you're playing games with numbers, it doesn't stand up. And we're not going to quit. And at the end of the day, just like Sir Francis Bacon always said, the truth will win the day. The truth is going to come out. The truth is going to win.
And Jake, to add on to that, not only is it family links, and the truth of the matter, but there's also esoterica. There's also, kind of Bacon spirituality, I guess is one way of putting it, and different bits and pieces of that tradition that Bacon inherits that are like hidden in the sonnets. They're hidden in the 1611. And the 1611 will last, it's just going to last in the KGB. It's going to last. And so it was brilliant to hide them in places that you're not going to destroy a piece of artwork. You're not going to destroy the 1611, the Shakespeare's plays and sonnets. They stand the test of time. And with that, the truth, the esoteric, the relationships, all of it hidden, unless you have the eyes to see it, also stands the test of time.
100%. And this is the part that people don't understand. I think it's once you have something that good and that fine, placing these clues within it, that's easy.
Sure.
It is. I mean, easier.
If I could add to what John and you were saying, First Folio, it's histories, it's comedies, it's tragedies, and it's people that have stories to tell and never forget. But there was no free press. There was no way to speak out your mind and put it in print without serious repercussions.
Correct.
So if you could find a way to use a plot that you well knew the story of and change the characters and maybe the place and Hollywood up the story a little bit to make it even better as a play, where you were hiding some truth to what really happened. So
absolutely,
that's what we will find out. And I'm only beginning to try to understand and look at all the titles of Shakespeare, the years that they were written, and then try to understand what people know that have studied Shakespeare for decades. Listen to them, because they see differences. Like, one difference they see is how the plays were written when Elizabeth I's alive and how the tone changes after she's gone.
Right.
And there's a reason. So there's just some things to look at and dive deeper into that are going to reveal things down the road. And I'm trying to get into that now. So
yeah, 100%. And I've discussed on this podcast before how say Hamlet is very autobiographical of Bacon and the information that we've discovered. People always want to say that, oh, well, it's very autobiographical for Edward de Vere. Far more so for Bacon. Thanks, AO. Still recovering from when I was with Jeff. The amount of information. Well, that's what happens when you're hanging out with Bill Smith, because that guy, he's a whirlwind. Just keeps on coming. Kat saying, one of the supposed treasure theories for OI is Shakespeare's missing plays. I always piffed that. I am reconsidering. Kat, I don't know. I'm with you on that, really, because what missing plays, as far as we know, right? It's a fallacy called hypothesis contrary to fact. We if they're missing, how do we know that they even existed in the first place? So I know people have supposed that they did, but again, at the end of the day, I think that everything that was supposed to be preserved was in the first folio, in my humble opinion.
Jayson, I really like what you said, because it is, Shakespearean plays and sonnets really it talked about the human condition and what it means to be a human being. And then also, in many cases, was a sense of justice. It was a political commentary. So you had a lot of that going on. And if I'm not mistaken, Jake, did not Shakespeare make up some words to put into sonnets and plays where he was the original, how should I say, the originator of words that have made it into our English language, and that they had signature values for some of the words? Like
100%.
Yes. Let me play on that.
Go ahead.
Well, you got to understand who Bacon was. He's working side by side with the spy master, Francis Walsingham. He's all seeing. He sees everything. Any rumor in town or around the world, that's their job, to be on top of it. But you can't just say stuff and use this stuff. And the other thing is he's a lawyer. And at one point, he's attorney general. So he has all these plays and acts and scenes in front of him in the courtroom where these scholars know that writings of Shakespeare had to have been done by a lawyer, because he uses the terminology in it.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
There's over 30,000 different words used in all the writings. That is massive. You got to have a serious education and a huge life experience to be able to write all that stuff out.
Absolutely. That's been one of the main arguments all along for Bacon proponents of writing Shakespeare, of the authorship question.
But Jake, you also have the image. I mean, as well as the political and the human condition, you also have John Dee involved in this whole thing. And there's the image, and you guys have seen it before, where John Dee is holding the light of knowledge, the esoteric of the truth, and literally passing down the ascendant master to Bacon from John Dee. He's handing him the light of truth, which is, reconstructed in the Masonic ritual degree 3, where you're raised into the light of reason, the light of truth.
Right.
So, that's not lost on Bacon at all. And it's not lost on that symbol, where literally Dee is handing Bacon the light, which is an ongoing theme with Bacon.
Sure is.
Yeah.
Again, every time I do this podcast, I'm always blown away by the quality of, people's comments and questions and your presentation, your information, you three in particular. It's always so, I don't know, just refreshing, and it just gives me hope in a lot of ways. And, it's what keeps us all going, I think. So many great questions. And Oh, here's Z is making a great point. They had to repeat it in case of destruction, wars,
Correct.
children throwing out a parent's papers. That Z, that's so true. And that's one of the things. One of the shows that you and I did, John, where we talked about, it's redundancy. They just kept repeating the same information.
Sure, it ensured the information made it forward, and the fact that the diversity of modality is also was pre-planned as well, because that information is going to make it through, whether it be in image, symbol, sonnets, or King James Bible. It didn't really matter. That information was going forward,
Right?
And they made sure of it.
Yeah, and they preserved it in many places as they possibly
Absolutely.
could. And I think that what's going to happen is after this next piece of information drops, and I weather the storm of the pushback, because this is you three know what I know, but once I actually lay out all of the evidence, suddenly, and you guys have started to say the same thing, all of a sudden things start to come into focus. Jenny, good to see you. Always,
I like that question.
Always asking great questions. Do you
Yeah.
think Queen Elizabeth knew what he was up to as far as encoding his story for public consumption?
Well, look at when it was printed. It's printed after she's gone. It's a green light. When his half brother is king of Scotland and England, they have this, he moves up in the ranks. There's this green light to move forward and move their people forward. It's not always about them. There's an inner circle, and they're all moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
And now's the time. Now's the time to colonize. Now's the time to print. Now's the time to move their mother where they didn't think she was fit to be in Westminster Abbey. These are huge accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a window, and they took full advantage and planned everything out.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Symbolically, Jake, we see B in the Psalms 46, B, E, E, and B, E. Mm-hmm. This theme of B's keeps coming up. Well, the Queen Bee is Elizabeth I.
Except for the fact that, get this, the value of Queen of Scots in K cipher is 255, B in simple cipher.
Wow!
I was thinking. I'm thinking Mary.
I'm thinking. Yeah.
We honor the apis. We honor the apis with this symbol in our paintings.
Mm-hmm. Yes, wow. That's what I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
Mary.
That's amazing. That's great.
That's what I think.
Yeah,
because John, my like you said, the symbolism of it. My very first reaction, my first instinct was the exact same thing, Elizabeth.
Wow.
But then when I started really digging in, and like I said, these things and a few and other pretty crazy stuff is coming up in this next book.
I guess the question that keeps echoing about is, was Elizabeth involved in speculative Freemasonry at all? Did she know about it? Did she know what Bacon was up to, or was that kept off the books?
Again, great question. Great question. I don't know.
The kings and queens were part of the Garter Knights. Right. They made final decisions on who was going to make the cut. So if there were 2 openings and there were 4 applicants that got approved by the Knights, they had the final approval. So, but yeah, there could have been their secret world of, keeping more secrets on top of secrets.
Yep.
Inner circle within an inner circle.
Yeah. And there's some bad blood with Elizabeth's father.
Oh yeah.
And there's some mistreatment to Garter Knights. And this all plays into it. Everything. Mm-hmm. And Bacon and his brother, they make it right. They change everything over.
Correct. Yep. Wow, guys. So we've been going an hour and 12 strong here. So I want to be respectful of Will across the pond. We're well past prime time.
Yeah.
And he has one more slide he wants to show us off the air, and I can't wait to see that.
Yeah.
So I'm being a little selfish, and I'm going to shut this thing down, and then we're going to talk amongst ourselves here.
Well,
all right.
Jake, a toast to Bacon?
Yeah. Toast to Bacon. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday
to
Bacon. Thanks for joining us tonight, gang. ton of fun with a lot of good friends as usual. Have a great night, people. Be good to each other.